Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Matt's going to be teaching you how to play the theme song to MASH. Now, this has always been one of my favorite TV show themes, simply because the composition itself is absolutely gorgeous. But I've got to give big props right off the bat to Matt because he put it onto the ukulele so elegantly. And I did get a chance to play through all of the arrangement, and I've got to say that it's going to be perfect for the intermediate fingerstyle player. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the lesson, because in this video, Matt is going to teach you how to play the entire arrangement. But if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at this link, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com and do a search for MASH theme. Now also on that page will be the interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a great feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you want. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
Today we're going to work on a solo arrangement of the theme song from MASH. Let's go ahead and start with Melody A, the intro. I do think this is the hardest part of the song, so bear with me as we go through it, but it sounds so good on the ukulele when you get it right. We're going to start here with our index finger on the second fret of the C string, and to pluck this we're going to use what's called four-finger picking, which means our thumb on the G string, index finger on the C string, middle finger on the E string, and ring finger here on the A string. We're going to pluck that C string, and we're going to pluck the open on the A. And as we pluck that open on the A, we're going to slide our hand down so that our ring finger can get on 10 of the E string, which is then the next note. And then 9 on the G string with our middle finger. And then we're going to play open on the A to finish that measure. So it's a big jump, but if you think about it when you're playing the open A, visualizing that ring going to 10, it's so much easier. And in time, that's something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into measure 2, it starts off the same. 2 on the C, open on the A. And the ring finger is still going to go up on 10 of the E, but you're also going to take your middle finger, place it on 10 of the G string, and pluck those two at the same time, using your middle and thumb with the four-finger picking method. Then the next thing you're going to play is 9 on the G and 10 on the A. To do this, index finger on 9 of the G, pinky finger on 10 of the A. Big squeeze, or little squeeze rather, as you're getting those fingers to move in. But the big trick is to make sure that you start to put your index and pinky fingers into place before you move your middle and ring fingers away. This is a really tough section. It's really tricky. But with practice of just doing this again and again, you'll be able to get it. And then at the end of that measure, just an open A, just like what was played before on measure 1. So here's measure 2 in time, really slow, something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going right into measure 3, it's actually exactly the same as measure 1. No difference whatsoever. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then as we go on to measure 4, it starts off exactly the same as measure 2. So the same sequence of. But the only difference now is the very last note that's played. Instead of it being open on the A, we're going to play 3 on the A with the index finger. So measure 4 in time is something like this, nice and slow. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that we can hear it though, here is all of Melody A, the intro being played. Really slow. Again, this is the hardest part of the song. So if you get through this, it's smooth sailing from here. Should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, as we go on to the next section, the B section, melody 1, we're going to start with a G minor chord, which we're going to just take our middle finger, place on the 2nd fret of the C string, ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the E, and index here on the 1st fret of the A. And we're going to go away from our 4-finger picking method and just use what I call thumb picking. Just use the thumb to strum through this chord and then play the individual melody notes, all with just the thumb. So we play through the chord, and then we play open on the A, just taking that index off. Let's put that index back on, take it off again, and then put it on one more time. But when you put it on this time, you're going to take off the other 2 fingers to make this C7 chord and strum through. So in time, nice and slow, that should sound something like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Going into measure 6 now, the first beat of measure 6 is just continuing to let that C7 ring, but then we're going to play open on the A, open on the G, open on the C, and open on the E. Nice straightforward measure overall. So measure 6 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Measures 5 and 6 in time, which are kind of a pair, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Going on to measure 7 now, we're going to play this F chord. Just take your index finger, place on the 1st fret of the E string, strum your C, E, and A together. Play the open G, and then open A, open G again. And then taking this same little F chord, just add your middle finger on 2 of the C to make it this D minor, and strum your C, E, and A together. And so that in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Going into measure 8 now. Measure 8, you're going to play open on the G, and then 1 on the E, and then 2 on the C, which you'll notice is all that D minor chord just being carried over from the previous measure. And then you're going to play your 1 on the E and 0 on the A together, just so you can use your thumb. Pluck those 2. So measure 8 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And now 7 and 8, again a pair much like 5 and 6, should sound something like this together. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Going right on to measure 9 here, new pair that we're starting, we're going to go to this G5 chord. To do that, we're going to take our ring finger, place on the 3rd fret of the E string, and our middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string. And you'll notice that's actually carried over from the previous D minor chord. We're going to play our G, C, and E strings this time, stopping on the A. And then we're going to go down to 1 on the E string with our index finger, taking the ring finger off. Then you can play the open G, 1 on the E again. And then we're going to add our ring finger back on 3 of the E, but we're going to take our other fingers off, so it's 0, 0, 3, creating this C5 chord. So in time, measure 9 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Going right into measure 10, measure 10 is going to play 1 on the E, and then open on the E, and then open on the C, and open on the G. So a pretty straightforward measure overall. In time, that should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And 9 and 10, completing the pair, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Going on to measure 11, which is the last stretch here of this melody B. We're going to play F chord again, just index finger on 1 of the E, and we're going to play the 0 C and 1 in E together. Open on the E, 1 on the E, open on the E again. Then we're going to go back to our little D minor, which is going to be 2 on the C, 1 on the E with our middle and index fingers. Pluck those 2 strings together. So the end of measure 11 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into measure 12 now, we're going to play open on the G. Then we're going to play a D chord. And the way I like to play a D is a little bit tricky, but I like to bar my index finger and have the A string off. The big trick to this is make sure that you're using that little knuckle crease right where your E string is so that you can raise that index finger off and let that ring out. If that's too difficult for you, it's totally fine to use a 3-finger method, but I definitely recommend working on this. It's like a little yoga for your fingers. And then you're going to play the C string and E string to finish that measure 12. So in time, measure 12 is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And that last pair there, measures 11 and 12, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And so that we can hear it, here's all of this B melody going all the way through with each one of these pairs. So measures 5 through measures 12 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And from here, we go on to melody C. Now this is just a higher version, essentially using different harmony as the melody B was. It's a really beautiful part. And to start, we're going to play a G minor chord. We're going to use our ring finger here on the 7th fret of the C string, middle finger here on the 6th fret of the E string, and our index finger here on the 5th fret of the A string. We're going to strum through all 4 of these. Then we're going to add our pinky on 8 of the E. We're going to play 5 on the A, and then 8 on the E again. And then we're going to take everything off except our index finger for this C add 9 chord. So in time, that should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now going into measure 14, it does not get easier than measure 14. All that we do is move that index finger down to 3 on the A, play that, let it ring for a little bit, and then we play it again, and that's the whole measure. So in time, 14 is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And the pair sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going on to 15, we're going to play a real big stretch of a chord. The next couple chords are a little bit of a stretch. This is an A minor add 11. Index finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. Stretch your pinky out to 5 on the A. Make sure you get a nice angle with that finger. If it gets relaxed, you're going to get a buzz. So you want to make sure you're right at the tip of the finger. Strum through all 4 strings. And then I like to use on the 3, I like to put my ring finger there on the 3rd fret of the A string. If you need to slide down your pinky, that's okay too. Whatever works for your hand. And you'll see that it's just going to play the full chord followed by the 3 on the A, then the 5 on the A again, then the 3 on the A again. And then another big stretch goes to this F6 chord. Pinky out to 5 on the A, index finger on 1 of the E strings from our C, E, and A together. So measure 15 is a bit of a doozy, but it should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. But measure 16 is exactly the same as measure 14 in that we play the 3 on the A, and then we play it again. and that's it. So 16 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and 15 and 16 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and And then we'll go on to measure 17. This is a very spicy sounding chord, but I promise you it is correct. We're going to use our index finger on the 5th fret of the C string and our middle finger here on the 6th, or the 5th fret on the C string and then middle on the 6th fret of the E string. So 5 on the C with the index, 6 on the E with the middle. And we're going to strum those two along with the open A, which is a little spicy, but that is what's correct. It's trying to create a little bit of tension here. And then we're going to play 8 with our pinky on the E string. Then we're going to play this D minor chord. To do that, just bar across the 5th fret of the C, E, and A strings with your index finger. Then we're going to play 8 on the A with the pinky. And then for the end of this measure, we take that bar and we slide it all the way up to 10, but we make sure we're across all 4 strings this time for this little G minor 7. But we only have to strum through the C, E, and A. So measure 17 in time looks and sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now, the reason why we want that full bar on the G minor 7 is when we go on to measure 18, the first note is the 10 on the G, then the 10 on the E, and then 12 on the C, take your ring finger, place it right there on 12 of the C. In time, that should be something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And those two measures together, measures 17 and 18, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And from here we go on to measure 19. We just play across the 5 for that D minor, the C, E, and A strings. And that actually concludes melody C. So let's go ahead and hear, well, measure 19 in times, something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and hear measures 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, which comprises all of melody C. Should sound something like this, nice and slow, but in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and... You can hear I slowed down a little bit with that. I just like how it sounds as you're going through there because it's kind of the end of the song. Now it's not technically the end because we do have an outro which takes us now to melody D. Now here's what's cool. If you've made it this far, you're done with the song because this outro part is exactly the same in every single way except for one note as the intro. Exactly the same. And the only difference is the last note of it all. Measures 1, 2, 3, and 4 are exactly the same as 20, 21, 22, 23, except for the very last note. So we're going to start with that same little motif of... Right? And then we're going to do that again. And then instead of playing that 3 on the A, we don't. We just let that ring off into the ether. So it's exactly the same, except we don't play that very last note on the very last part. So that whole outro section sounds like something in time. It sounds like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And we just let it ring. So if you made that intro section sing, you can definitely make this outro as well. And there you have it. That is the MASH theme song. It's a really difficult exercise of a song because of how much it traverses the neck, especially for that intro and outro. But I will say it's one of the most satisfying things to play when you start getting it comfortable, because you can just make those notes ring. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys next time on the next lesson here on Rock Class 101. Thanks so much.
All right, guys, so this week's ukulele lesson was a ton of fun. This is a really, really beautiful composition, and Matt did a great job putting it onto the ukulele so elegantly. So I do want to give you a friendly reminder that if you wanted to get the tabs to just keep for your records, that was available at this link. Or you can go to this site, rockclass101.com, do a search for MASH theme. Now, also on that page was the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer, so you can literally hit play, watch the tab scroll across in real time. You can highlight bars to loop them. You can slow it down to any speed you want. Just a great tool in learning this song that much easier. All right, guys, so again, I hope you enjoyed learning this, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.